My name is Vishwesh, a student of DG Vaishnava School of Management, and it's my pleasure to welcome our speaker for this evening, V. Lakshmi Chirauri. Lakshmi Chirauri is an Agile People's Framework accredited trainer with a keen interest in Agile HR practices and workplace culture and helps members of organization reach their full potential. She graduated with a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering and management in Vishweshwara Technological University and holds an MBA degree in human resources in Nottingham Trent University and also completed her master's in industrial and organization psychology at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. Agile People's Framework is the world's first dynamic and unified conceptual process methodology that transforms traditional human resources through agile people ops practices, giving an edge to organization leaders. She is the co-founder and managing director of Cultural Legends, and some of her qualities include being analytical, giving attention to details and quality, and has very good interpersonal skills. She conducts Agile HR cohort sessions and APF training programs at a global level. She serves as a working committee member for Agile People Hubs and extends voluntary research support to Business Agility Institute, commonly called a BAI. In 2019, she co-authored Hiring for Culture white paper with her BAI peers. She is accredited in conducting organization culture and effectiveness assessments. One of her organization culture inventory was with the Corrections Facility Center at St. Paul's, Minnesota, USA. With more than a decade of experience in global recruitment and HR operations, she serves as an advisor for Agile talent acquisition function. She is a pioneer of Agile HR community at Bengaluru, India. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us with us today, and the stage is all yours.
Okay, thank you for that detailed introduction. Okay, and yeah, I mean, I would say, first of all, a very, very warm welcome to each one of you. It's a real pleasure to be over here on this platform, as well as, having or listening to those kind of conversations that you people were having. Okay, it really gives a good sense of feeling that you as students at this point of time, like, you're discussing about communication, you're talking about what really can bring about, engagement at the workplace. So great, thank you so much for that, for making my day, I would say. Okay, so having said that, right, warm welcome once again. And already I've been introduced, but a quick about myself. I would say that as a co-founder and director of Cultural Legends, I'm really passionate about building a very strong learning and development community for the people operations function. When I say people operations, we are kind of talking about HR. Okay, so traditionally we term HR like as human resources, but now, because of so many advancements as related to employee engagement, human experience, and all, many thought leaders and practitioners are talking about HR, being more called in as people operations function. Okay, so yes, I'm passionate again about building that kind of a community for the people ops members, and definitely love to do mentoring and coaching for people too. Okay, so having said that, right, let's kind of get into the details of today's presentation. um, so the presentation topic is managing HR transformations through Agile People Ops framework, or I would say the Agile HR framework. So before we get into those details, we would like to have, it would be really good to have it presented in a very structured way. So having said that, first, it would be like understanding the why part. That is, what are the various variables? What are the various factors in today's business era that is kind of causing individuals, thought leaders to start talking about the need for people ops function or the HR function to transform? Then what is the research saying? Like research bodies, be it Deloitte, McKinsey, what are they saying as to why HR transformation is the need of the hour? After having understood the why, you would be introduced to the what aspect. That is, what is agile? And what is this paradigm shift that is happening in today's companies at a global level? That is, what is the difference between the traditional and agile HR? And after having understood you will be introduced to the Agile HR methodology, which is Agile People Ops framework. Of course, I would be giving a very high overview of it. And definitely at the end of the session, questions are welcome. And of course, my email ID is over here. At any point of time you think that some more questions are coming in, feel free to email me or feel free to connect with me, and I would be more than happy to help you out, right? So having said that, right, let's begin with the main thing, that is the why element, okay? Right. So I would not like to talk a lot about Industrial Revolution because already, when this conference came in, it was mainly because we are already in this era of Industrial Revolution 4.0, right? And very soon we will be entering the fifth one. So all of you in your own way know that the business era is kind of very chaotic, very disruptive, okay? Now, why would that be? Because organizational leaders as well as companies are sailing in what we call as the VUCA world. Now, VUCA is a USA military acronym for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So, what does all mean? It all means that, because things are becoming very complex, be it in terms of the kind of political environment that each and every country is kind of experiencing, the kind of new regulations, be it the Brexit or any other regulations that are kind of coming and it is impacting the other countries, okay? Then there is this multi-generational workforce. So we have individuals who are in the late 40s and 50s in organizations, but at the same time, we have people who are entering fresh from the colleges or individuals who already have that 4+ or 7+ years of experience who are in their mid 30s. So we have a kind of, hybrid generation of workforce out there in the companies, and each generational has their own kind of, expectations, needs from an organization. So it kind of becomes very challenging for individuals or for the, when I say individuals, I'm referring to those leaders, to organizations. It kind of becomes really difficult as to how can we really be mindful of those expectations, those needs of each and every workforce member, right? And then there is this technology, like it's kind of advancing in a huge way. We have these robotics coming in, artificial intelligence coming in, and because of all this, right, people are kind of, if they're not technology driven, if they're not saying yes to technology, adopting it, practicing or learning it, it kind of becomes challenging for them to even decipher the whole data, the whole information that is out there before them, right? So the analysis, the understanding of that plethora of information becomes really difficult. So all these kind of challenges that are out there is kind of creating a lot of disruption, a lot of ambiguity and complexity for leaders. So how can they go about in navigating in a smooth way? How can they kind of create meaning out of this chaotic situation, right? So for that, definitely, while like this is a reality, right? So parallelly, there have been these research bodies and organizations like Deloitte, World Economic Forum, McKinsey, and many others like PricewaterhouseCoopers. All these big firms, organizations have been doing their own research. They have been kind of connecting with different CEOs, CHROs, that is Chief Human Resource Officers, and others to kind of understand what is it that they are experiencing in their organization. What are some of the trends that they see? For instance, Deloitte, every year, right, it releases something, a huge report called as the Global Human Capital Trends Report. So every year they're going ahead doing that kind of a research, trying to find out what are those top human capital trends and what should the leaders, the senior HR professionals should be mindful of and start planning to maybe inculcate better practices or maybe plan out a kind of a strategy as to how they can go ahead and implement the same, right? So in this entire research, it was found that 59% of the companies, they rate that organizations have to be redesigned. Okay, that means we just can't continue to have that hierarchical kind of a structure, that top down flow or that top down approach. Basically, things have to change. We have to be more agile, more nimble and responsive, and organizations should create that kind of a structure, should create that kind of models in place. Similarly, World Economic Forum in their research found that by 2022, 54% of employees will require reskilling and upskilling. Already, when Swarna was going ahead and asking those questions, one of you, I believe, mentioned that continuous learning, right, including some kind of learning activities would be really helpful. So, yes, I mean, you people are right on the track. You're understanding what that kind of a need is, right? So, research two points out that if employees are not getting reskilled, upskilled, and if companies are not going ahead and providing that kind of a platform, it would be a kind of it would not be like a win-win situation kinds, right? Either the employee will leave the organization, and if the employees are leaving, that means the company is suffering, right? I mean, they may be losing high potential talent basically, and if that's the case, how can even the company think of maintaining that competitive edge in today's business era, right? Then again, Deloitte in 2019, it found out that 65% of these respondents, again, when we say respondents, we're talking about organizational leaders, we're talking about the CHROs, the executive team, and they believe that again, the functional hierarchy, the traditional hierarchy has to get become more network based, more team centric kind of. So these are some of the facts. And of course, McKinsey, PricewaterhouseCoopers, they also say that using Agile as a methodology would really be helpful for the organizations to improve their operations, improve their performance metrics. And there is research out there that says that, organizations that have successfully adopted Agile are able to, get that kind of success ratio, and they're able to have really good customer relationships. So having said that, right, let's kind of dig into the what aspect, right? Remember, when we're talking about the agenda, we covered the why element. Now we're talking about the what. So, what is agile? Agile is kind of a huge buzzword, I would say, and it saw its birth mainly in the IT industry, in the software development companies, wherein all the software development professionals, they would be like, they were following a very sequential, a very systematic kind of a workflow, workflow, mainly called as a waterfall model. And it was kind of very time consuming. Like for large projects, it would take maybe an year or so to go ahead and deliver the product to the customer. There was no interaction with the customer after the product was kind of, developed. The customer says that this is not what I wanted. Okay, I wanted, some more additional features. Where are they? Okay, so there was kind of a disconnect between the software team as well as the customers. So a couple of professionals, they came in, they realized that this is not the way things should work. We need to really emphasize on customer value, because customer is the king, right? I mean, if you have studied your marketing subject over there, we would always have this like customer is the king, customer expectations have to be respected, have to be valued. So, taking that into consideration, that's how these group of people met in USA, and they decided that we really need to go ahead and produce products and services or develop them in a better way so that there is continuous customer interactions. People are kind of interacting with each other, developing that continuous feedback loops are kind of getting created. So that's how, the agile kind of came into existence. Of course, it became really successful with the IT departments or the IT companies. So thought leaders started thinking that, okay, Agile did a great job in IT function. Why not we try to bring in the Agile philosophy, the values, the principles into different functions, be it marketing, be it supply chain, human resource, and other functions. So that's how Agile kind of, set up, stepped into these different functions. So today, I would say that people in the HR department or in the people ops function and department, they're realizing that yes, agile can do wonders. And I would say some of the companies in USA as well as in Europe have started practicing the agile principles and values. So when so much is happening, right? It's really important to understand what exactly this term agile means, right? People have given different definitions. Thought leaders have their own definition. But to keep it really simple for all of you, it is a mindset, right? Now, what is a mindset? It is a collection of values, beliefs, assumptions that drives an individual to act in a specific way, okay? So it is this mindset, it is these thoughts and beliefs of an individual that makes an individual to act or elicit a set of behaviors. So agile is more than this mindset. It is more about this collection of values, beliefs, and the teams, the individuals, they need to start imbibing these values because it becomes easy for them to make customer friendly decisions so that they are able to deliver the products and services that are quality based and in a timely manner to the customers. Now, in the people ops function or for the people ops team or the HR team, customers are none other than our candidates, our employees, our vendors and suppliers, maybe like, the staffing agencies or recruitment companies from whom the company is kind of getting those candidates, resumes and then talking to them and then maybe going ahead and offering them, right? So for all these, so these are the customers and HR people operations function need to be really mindful that it is, as of today, it is more, we call it as the era of talent, okay? Talent over here means an individual having a set of skills and capabilities. And every individual has that kind of skill capabilities. It is just that they have to be harnessed, right? So employees have to be respected for that. Organizations and leaders need to really value that. They really need to go ahead and understand that it's important that we deliver that kind of value to individuals. And how do we do that? Only when we are able to go ahead and espouse a set of values. What are these values, right? That is transparency. Now, again, I mean, a lot of discussion happened about communication, right? You all have already talked in a very beautiful way that why communication is important, how important it is for the employer to communicate, or, that openness basically, right? So that is what we call as the transparency. So having that kind of open communication among the team members, between the leaders and the team is very, very important. Customer centric focus. Again, as I told, the essence of being agile is about delivering value to our customers, to our candidates, our employees. So it's important that we are kind of customer centric. We are focused towards our customers' needs, expectations. Now, how can we do that? Only when each of you have that kind of a learning mindset, right? Continuously learn, because only when you learn, you are able to go ahead and embark on a continuous improvement journey. Then the cross collaboration. Gone are those days when, each of you as an individual contributor would work, sit on your desk. Of course, right now, because of COVID situation, we are kind of completely virtual, but still just log into your computer, do your work, and that's about it. Does that work? No, it doesn't work, right? You as an individual, maybe in the HR function or in the marketing function, you have to kind of interact with your team members, understand what they're doing, how all of you together are kind of contributing towards the company's goals, how the other peer or the other team member of yours is contributing towards their own individual goals and objectives, right? So all this is kind of, leading to the term cross collaboration. So we need to really connect with each other, help each other, and work together so that we are able to collectively build that kind of what we call as a collective intelligence, build that, and then provide that kind of, or I would say, achieve those kind of company goals as well as individual objectives. And finally, it is about the adaptability, right? If you're not adaptable to the organization, to the kind of environment we are in, we are doomed to fail, right? I mean, the COVID situation is a great example on how colleges and institutions had to adapt themselves to create this online learning platform, right? How companies had to go ahead and adapt virtual onboarding practices. So if organizations, leaders are not kind of being adaptable to the environmental situation, be it the external, be it the internal, then we just can't be nimble, we just can't be responsive and agile and function in a better or in an efficient way. Okay, so having said that, right, let's kind of understand the difference between the traditional HR and the agile HR. Now, traditional HR, maybe, I don't know right now, what kind of, in your MBA books, what is being taught in the institutions, but I do know maybe it's talking about the recruitment, like, the external sourcing, maybe by newspapers, advertisements, or career fairs, and so on, right? So those are kind of, traditional methods for HR. They are evergreen, I would say, but then things are moving. Business is changing, the world is changing. We have these LinkedIn platforms, we have Facebook channel, we have something called as a Slack channel. So there are many new platforms that are coming, and HR professionals or the recruitment professionals, they are becoming very, very nimble in the thought process of going ahead and utilizing those kind of platforms, right? To source resumes, to go ahead and onboard candidates. So what I'm trying to decipher from this is that traditional HR has been out there. It's kind of a top-down approach. We're talking about that standard recruitment practices. One of you already before this session started talked about performance appraisal, right? Performance management. Yes, all those are there. There are these set of fixed roles, Yes, there are recruiters who would just do the recruitment. There are these generalists who would look into a little bit of, maybe payroll, maybe a little bit into the HR administration, or maybe kind of go ahead and do some kind of little bit of business partnering. And the solutions, like, the policies, the practices of HR that are kind of getting developed, they're not getting tested with the customers, right? Again, remember we said that customers for the HR team, for the people ops team, is none other than the candidates, the employees. So most of the companies that are kind of following these traditional practices, they don't even bother to check or understand what are the pain points of employees. Go ahead and think of ideating solutions that would help resolve these pain points. It's all about strict business. It's all about treating people as resources. Okay, the resources join today, the person is going to do the work, and then when the time comes, he or she gets exited. That's about it. So it's kind of, a monotonous kind of thing that kind of is there, and the whole focus is on maximizing the shareholders profit. It's all about, the company earning that kind of a huge revenue, the investors get that piece of thing, the CEOs, they have that rich cut in their salaries, and a lot many things happening. But that is bound to fail now, tomorrow, and in the near future. Because, as I said, right, we are in that VUCA world. People are having different expectations, different needs, and we're talking about employee engagement, which is kind of evolved into what we call as a human experience. Okay. Today, companies, many thought leaders are talking about building that human experience. So, how is that possible? That is possible only when we go ahead and shift our mindset, right? Shift our values and beliefs from traditional elements, traditional aspects to what we call as the agile HR. So it is more kind of customer driven. Okay. Again, we are keeping our candidates, we are keeping our people in the center. We are kind of thinking from their point of view. Okay, today my new hire has joined. how can I kind of create that kind of a beautiful experience for the new hire so that he or she enjoys that first day and that kind of sticks, to the second day, third day, and maybe, over a period of time, like 6 months, and then, on a long term basis, right? So, how can we really create that kind of processes, that kind of practices, which are keeping our candidates, our new hires, and employees as a focal point? And we're also being mindful that if today my new hire or a set of candidates said that they didn't like this experience with the company, maybe because the application that they had to put in for, like putting in that resume, towards the company, that was a long time taking process, right? If that kind of a feedback comes in, the HR people need to be mindful that they still can't continue more again in creating that kind of lengthy recruitment process or having that annual performance appraisals. They have to think that, okay, people are saying that they are not appreciating this kind of practices that our company is into. That means we really need to switch our gears. We really need to start going ahead and thinking new ways of designing practices, new ways of designing policies. So is there a technology out there that can kind of, with one, three, four clicks, the resume detail kind of gets populated into the applicant tracking system or the company system? The recruiter looks at that and then gives a call to the candidate, talks to the candidate about the company's culture, about what the position entails, about the growth opportunity for the candidate, right? Having those kind of conversations, having those kind of discussions, and then, creating that kind of first impression. You all would have heard that saying, right? First impression is a last impression. So if the recruiter representing the employer brand is able to go ahead and say that, what, this is what the company is about, this is what the kind of opportunity you will get, the candidate would be like, wow, this is kind of amazing. It kind of resonates with my values. Let me give it a try. Let me go ahead and take up this interview. And, it kind of builds in that kind of positivity, that kind of engagement, right? And then what is important again is building in the T-shaped capabilities. Again, it starts with the HR, right? I mean, if the HR is not able to get equipped in building the T-shaped skills, then how can they even build that kind of opportunity or build that kind of a platform in different, in the entire organization? So when we say T-shaped skills, what does that mean, right? So it is the vertical bar, right, which you see here. It is kind of, it's deep rooted, right? It kind of says that an individual should have deep expertise in one skill set. Okay, maybe this person is really good in going ahead and having that employee interactions, but at the same time the horizontal bar says that individuals should have the capabilities, the skills to go ahead and connect or have that kind of a mentality, or that I would say the mindset to interact with other functions, other areas within the organization, and see how, with collective intelligence, collective knowledge, beautiful solutions can be delivered. So, for instance, in the HR world, we would see many people having a siloed mentality. When I say siloed mentality, a recruiter will only do the recruitment job, sourcing, screening, onboarding. That's about it, right? The individual is not kind of given an exposure into how to have those meaningful conversations once the new hire joins in, understanding how he or she can participate in the performance management of the individual, how this person can go ahead and connect with the managers, leaders, and do some kind of business partnering with them, understand what the need is, what the demand is, create those kind of learning and development programs, right? So all this kind of is still missing in many organizations. So it's important that we shouldn't just have expertise in one skill set, but we want to have a kind of an umbrella kind of skills, right? We can be deep rooted in one, maybe in recruitment, but then we also need to understand our business partnering skills as HR professional. We need to understand about learning and development, or maybe we even need to understand a little bit about digital marketing, right? Because again, it's a digital world, right? So if we don't know how to market, be it ourselves or be it the employer brand or be it that kind of a position for which we are hiring, how can we even go about and create that kind of success, right? So these T-shaped skills is really important for you individuals to build upon. And as I said again, it's all about keeping customers in the center and then designing solutions and practices. Again, how do we know if those solutions are kind of successful? Only when we have tested them, right? And how can we test it? We can test it with the new hires, with our current employees. Check with them, hey, you know what? We have designed this new performance management system. How about you testing it and checking out whether it kind of resonates with you and the business unit you are a part and parcel of, right? So we are talking about piloting prototypes in that way. And throughout this entire, process, we are kind of maximizing our stakeholders' value. Who are the stakeholders? They are none other than the organizational members, right? We always have to emphasize on building, maximizing that kind of value, creating that kind of a happiness, creating that kind of a resonant relationship with our members, right, within the organization. So that is kind of the benefit of, practicing agile HR, I would say. So having said that, right, kind of let's kind of deep dive a little bit about Agile People Ops framework. Okay, so during my introduction, it was already said that Agile People Ops framework. It's kind of a very dynamic methodology, and it kind of gives this understanding to the leaders, to the organizations that yes, traditional HR practices are kind of getting outdated, so we really need to go ahead and redefine our policies, our practices, and make it the agile way, okay? Like building in those agile people ops practices, being agile. So this methodology, that is agile people ops framework methodology, kind of has its own, I would say the manifesto or a set of principles, values on which the APF's philosophy is built. Okay. And what does APF, that is Agile People Ops Framework, give emphasis on? First and foremost, it is a team of teams. Remember, we talked earlier too that companies like Deloitte and other research bodies are already seeing that people are saying that we have to go away from these traditional hierarchies. It's no more of this command and control being successful, okay? Because what is required from today's workforce generation is more of participation, more of engagement, more of meaningful conversations. And how does that happen? It happens only in a team of teams environment. So individuals from marketing, from finance, from HR, from the IT department, all of them get together and work on a project because IT would have its own technological skills, right? The finance team would be talking and telling you that, you know what, this is a kind of a budget that we have, and if we have to go ahead and hire people, if we have to go ahead and purchase some kind of tools and softwares for the IT team to work well, then this is the budget frame in which we have to operate, kind. Then the HR team would be like, oh, okay, so if this is the kind of product we are developing, that means these kind of skill sets would be required. That means we have to do our own homework in going ahead and bringing in that kind of skill set, that kind of people with those kind of skill sets, right? And so everybody are kind of understanding the big picture. All of them are working together. They're understanding how each department, each function is supporting the other. And that way, this team of teams is kind of coming into existence, and they all are working towards that company's project, company's goals and objectives. And when they're working, it's not just for the company's sake, right? They as individuals through this teams of team of teams thing, they're kind of learning from each other. They're kind of going ahead and understanding how the finance people are thinking, what are they talking about, how it is kind of getting connected to the to whomever they have to go ahead and hire. So like that, they're kind of going ahead and building their, a shared learning kind of environment is kind of getting created. Then the manifesto talks about growth mindset over fixed mindset. Fixed mindset is kind of, you know what, from childhood, I have seen that I excel in math skills. I'm really good in numbers. That's what it is. People have told me that my people skills are not good, so they must be right. So I will go ahead excel in number. That's about it, right? So that's the kind of a fixed mentality that I am having, saying that, it's like I'm just good in XYZ area. I'm not able to build my skills in anything else. Okay. So it's very tunnel visioned, very fixed kind of a narrow mentality and approach. But growth mindset is like, so what if I have been good in numbers? I can develop my people skills. After all, it's the people era. I can definitely start having conversations, maybe with my friends, develop that kind of communication skills, that interactive skills, and definitely I can become a people oriented person too. Okay. So I'm excelling in, I'm good at numbers. I'm developing the interaction skills, and definitely at some point of time, I'm going to have that kind of people centric kind of, skills within me. So what am I doing? I'm kind of saying yes to opportunities. I'm kind of saying yes, there is opportunity to learn, there is opportunity to grow, and that's what we're talking about growth mindset. Then it's like the coaching culture over command and control. So it's more about today, people are not interested in hearing that, this is what, like do this, do that kind of a culture is kind of gone. What is important is going ahead and managers and leaders kind of understanding, what is it that you would like to learn from me? What is it that you would like to go ahead and, excel at? Tell me, and I will give you that kind of coaching and mentoring kind of capabilities, right? And finally, the transcultural competence over cultural competence. It's all about, culture competence means just understanding that India is a great culture and our Indian value system is good. That's about it. But transcultural competence is about respecting that USA culture, Singapore culture, Australia culture is also successful in their own way. They have their own beliefs and value systems, right? So it's all about embracing the cultural differences. So, having said that, right, quickly we will kind of look into a high overview about what the Agile People Ops framework talks about. It is more about, practicing what we call as a Scrumban methodology. Now, Scrumban, it is a fusion of Scrum and Kanban. Scrum and Kanban, they are the agile frameworks, okay? Scrum says there are a set of roles, there are a set of, short sprint cycles, work cycles, and there are those regular meetings. I believe Swarna, during her session, she talked about daily check ins, right? Yes. So when we are talking about regular cadences, when we're talking about ceremonies in the Scrum framework, we're talking about those daily check ins. Why those daily check ins are important? Again, to bring in that transparency, to bring in that kind of a communication, right? So our Scrum methodology talks about people having structured responsibilities, working in short cycles, and kind of getting into that daily check-ins, those kind of, entering into those feedback loops and having that transparent communication. Okay. Now, Kanban, if you see, right, I mean, when you see this visual, I believe you would really get a quick sense of, okay, backlog, again, it means like a list of tasks or work items that I have to do. When I start going ahead and, understanding that, okay, my priorities are XYZ, I kind of move these cards to the to do. And when I start doing, I move it over here. And then once it's done, it's kind of coming here. So if you see, right, we are kind of going ahead and doing a visual representation of our workflow, right, of the task items. So it really syncs up, it opens up the doorways for people to quickly understand what is the status, what is where the project or where the workflow is, and it fosters kind of a better communication. So When we bring in the advantages of Scrum and Kanban, it is called as Scrumban. Now, Scrumban framework, is that only important? Just you have this kind of ceremonies, meetings, check-ins, and you have one visual board that says to do, doing, done. Is that enough? No, it's not at all enough. What is important is what kind of human principles are we kind of imbibing or we are kind of cultivating within the organization to make it more holistic, more human centric in nature. And it's like purpose and meaning, right? I mean, what is the purpose of this organization's existence? What is the purpose of hiring people and creating that kind of a value based opportunity for them, right? Why do we really emphasize that data is integral? Being fair in our interactions with individuals, having this kind of a growth mindset, believing that let's connect together, let's work in teams and foster this collaboration and creating this transparency. So HR is really kind of need to understand that if they have to embark on the transformation journey, they have to kind of bringing these principles and practices and the Scrumban methodology into their day-to-day life. Because only when they're doing that, they're not only making the HR department, operate in an agile way, but it is also kind of, helping the organization to grow and to, transform completely. And finally, I would say that APF, like practicing Agile HR methodology, practicing Agile People Ops framework has its own value for the organization because you're kind of focusing on the human principles. You're kind of driven in a very human centric way, and to create that kind of an experience for your customers, you're kind of defining or tweaking, or, I would say re engineering your processes and practices that are value driven. You're kind of fostering a team centric culture. There are these daily check ins, there is this open communication and transparency, and leaders are giving the opportunity to members to continuously fail. Failure is said to be good. Uh, okay, only when you fail, you'll be able to succeed or know that this didn't work. So maybe there's another alternative solution, and let me go ahead and try it out. Okay, so leaders, organizations need to create that kind of an innovative culture, that learn do culture, and foster a lot of, meaningful, constructive conversations. Okay. So agile is all about being value, creating or developing this value for customers and also engaging in these kind of conversations and creating that kind of a transparency. So having said that, that kind of, I would like to leave you all with this thought that right now, I as a student can go ahead and develop that kind of skills and capabilities that will kind of make me, welcome in an organization. Or if I'm kind of an HR individual, I want to make my career into HR marketing, no matter what. How can I kind of be really people driven individual? How can I kind of go ahead and build that kind of skills and capabilities, right? So you really need to start thinking on how you can shape up yourself, shape your skills, capabilities, because only when you internalize that, you will be able to go ahead and, elicit those kind of behaviors in organization and contribute toward making that organization agile, right? And maybe as you grow, as you build in those values and beliefs, you would be kind of setting an example or being a role model for that next generation workforce, or for those people who would be in your shoes maybe down the line of 5 years, like where you are now, right? So I would like to conclude by saying that it's time for you people to kind of, build in these kind of values that kind of talks, the agile language, I would say. And finally, at any point of time, you would like to have more questions, you would like to, connect with me, feel free to do that. Like, I'm available on LinkedIn. Here is my email ID, and this is my phone number. So feel free to reach out for any future questions, I would say. Yeah, so with that, I would like to say thanks for listening. And if there are any questions, please let me know. And I would go ahead and answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It was a great presentation. We have I can't explain. We have got so much of insights from you, and we have already questions pouring in. But
Okay.
before going for the questions, I would like to give a quick summary, a very brief summary. So we started from how we have come to a VUCA world now, and you have also given us a very relatable explanation of what agile is, because agile is a buzzword now, and we listening to it everywhere, but we hardly know what it means. So that was a very relatable explanation. Thank you very much for that, ma'am. And also, we saw what how important it is to be transparent, customer centric, being adaptable, and also how it is important to be cross functional. And in the later part of the session, we also saw what agile ops framework is. And towards the last part of the session, we saw what uh, I'm not sure with the word
Scrumban, yeah, here you can
Scrumban,
see on the
yeah.
screen. Yes, 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 right. Yeah. Mhm.
So that was a very quick recap of what we saw. And the floor is open for questions, and I can already see questions being is coming in the chat box.
Mhm.
So Babu P says, "Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. To what extent agile HR is in practice, especially in countries like India?"
Great question. Okay, so to be really honest, to be really frank, India is kind of many organizations in India, like Accenture, IBM, big corporate giants, they're already realizing that agile HR is important, and then they are doing their level best in kind of creating that culture. But mid-level organizations, startups, enterprises, small scale enterprises, they are yet to get an understanding of what agile HR is. So, in a nutshell, I would say it is kind of, in a very nascent stages in India, and there is an opportunity to make it huge. And that's why, people like me and others are there kind of trying to bring in that kind of an agile HR practice and mindset, I would say. Mhm. Hope that answers question of Babu.
Yes, ma'am. And Jagan Selvaraj says, "Thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you, NIPM, for this wonderful opportunity." Thank you, Jagan. And we have some questions. Yeah, R. Dhanush. "Thank you, ma'am, for this session, and thanks for sharing your thoughts, ma'am." Thank you, Dhanush. And we have another question from Mayuri. "How does one cultivate growth mindset oneself and also implement the same in their organization?"
Very good. Good question. So the answer to this is that first and foremost, accepting the fact that if I, as an individual, I as a student, or I as a professional, I'm not going ahead and learning more, I will not be able to practice it or implement it, right? So, first and foremost, sinking in this kind of a thought process, and then, taking out time, maybe around an hour or two daily, every day, going ahead and trying to understand what are the kind of best practices that is happening within the HR industry or within the marketing industry, like whatever you want to specialize in, right? So being really receptive to the kind of information that is out there, going ahead and connecting with people, understanding what is happening, be it on LinkedIn, reading kind of, articles, building up that kind of a knowledge is very, very important, because that will build in your own self confidence in terms of maybe cracking an interview, or maybe in terms of once you enter the organization, being aware what is digital marketing or what is agile, how can that be brought into, right? So it all begins with going ahead and having a set of timetable for us, especially a learning timetable, basically, I would say, and start learning, start reading through articles, newsletters, attend webinars, right? Digital world, attend webinars, see what all information is out there, what kind of meaning you can come, you can get into that. Then sharing, they say that, teaching and sharing is the best way to, create those kind of permanent, things in your mind, in your brain, right? So interact with your fellow mates, talk with them what you have learned. So the shared learning, individual self-directed learning is important, and the same has to be cultivated in organization. Just because you're a part and parcel of a policy or a practice doesn't mean, and like let's say, SAP, like ERP, that's about it. No, there would be some other thing. There would be some other kind of a cloud. There would be some other kind of a big data out there. How can I go ahead and learn about it and create a better way of, functioning or creating a better kind of a technology, a policy, or a process? So it's all about internalizing the fact that I need to learn, tapping into those resources, webinars, online, physical, whatever, and then building on that. That's how you can kind of create that kind of a growth mindset within yourself, and always say yes, I can do it. Having that mindset, that frame of mind, that like impossible, right? The word like impossible, it's not actually impossible. It is like I am possible. Okay, so that's the kind of mentality you need to build in. Mhm. Hope that
Thank you,
answers the
ma'am.
question. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. And the next question is from Sonia. Dear speaker, what are your thoughts on leadership and agile HR? Are all successful leaders ethical?
Great question. No, not necessary. Okay. It again depends on how do you define success. Success is defined through human and people aspect, or success is defined in terms of getting the work done in a very hard way. Like, how are we defining what that successful leadership is within that organization? Okay, so many leaders, they are, some are ethical, some are not ethical. That's fine, but then what is important is that how I, as an individual, I, as a leader, can set an example for my team members, for my individual, or whomsoever I'm interacting, in kind of being ethical, in kind of being, fair to each and everybody, right? I mean, try to see who are those leaders who are kind of going ahead and showcasing that. For example, you come across Azim Premji, you come across stories of Elon Musk, right? There are many stories out there of different leaders, but out there somewhere you would see some people being really ethical and being really fair with their employees, with the practices and processes. Some would not be. So it's okay. You don't have to have that kind of a thought that, come on, those leaders have not been ethical, they have not been fair, they have caused the companies to bankrupt, right? So this might not be successful, so what's the point in me building that kind of value in me? So that's kind of wrong. I would say don't have that kind of an approach. Just believe that at the end of the day, right, you as an individual, you as a leader, have to be really fair in the way you're interacting with people. Everybody is equal. Okay, give them the opportunity not only to listen to them, like they coming and telling you, but then behaving in an ethical way in terms of process or practice that kind of creates or generates that value. So yeah, so at the end I would say that it's really important, that you take examples of those who are kind of believe in these fair practices, who are ethical, and you yourself need to have that as a value system. That's okay. Don't go by with what the other leaders, who are not that great, have done, because at some point of time they have had their doomsday, they have had their failures. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. So next, owing to the time schedule, that will be the next question will be the last question from Mohilan. What are the hindrance or difficulties faced when combining both Scrum and Kanban? As you said, Scrum are people with structured responsibilities, but Kanban is a lean methodology, people with new ideology.
Right. Okay, great. So there is, the best part is when we are doing the Scrum Bun, right? We are amalgamating the best practices of Scrum and Kanban. So when Scrum is talking about prescribed roles, Kanban is not talking about roles, but it is talking more about the continuous improvement. So roles, let that scrum master or let that, HR person, maybe known as a curator or a champion, they're coming together. They're kind of going ahead and talking about how can we continuously improve our practices and processes. Okay. So the way you're able to fuse in a better way, no difficulty would come. But then, if you try to be very rigid, try to follow more of not so good kind of a things, like some of the rigidity that Scrum would talk about, or maybe the Kanban, not talking much about the prioritization completely. If you're trying to fuse in the not so good ones, then only those issues come. But if you're fusing the good elements of the Scrum and Kanban, then it would take a little bit of time for members to sink in, but over a period of time, it would kind of get streamlined. People would sync up and things would really work out well. Like people would start learning about how, as a role of mine, I can kind of go ahead and elicit those behaviors so that I'm on that continuous journey, and how to bring in those conversations by using these kind of boards and creating, opportunities to remove any kind of delays. So it's all about how you are bringing in those practices. How do you're fusing it? If you're fusing it in a better way, that kind of a problem won't arise or difficulty won't arise, I would say.
Thank you, ma'am. And still, we have some questions in the chat box, but owing to the schedule, we cannot take them up right now. And I think our participants will reach you offline for this.
Always welcome, Swarna. Like people are more than welcome to reach out. And yeah, I would go ahead and extend the kind of whatever support, whatever Q&A kind of a thing offline too. I'm more than happy to do that, because you all are in that learning stage, right? You all need to understand, you all need to learn, and 45 minutes is very short. In fact, 1 day, 2 days, 1 week is kind of a short. So I respect, let the questions flow in, and I'll do my best to help
Thank you,
you
ma'am.
all. Yeah.
Thank you. And can you please stop sharing, ma'am, so that we can move into the next segment?
Awesome. Yeah, sure. Let me do that. I have, oh,
Yeah.
okay, hold on. Let me, 1 second. How do I, it's only pause share comes. Okay. Stop share. Got it. Done.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am. This was a very insightful session. And as a token of our love and gratitude, I would like to present this e-bouquet to you.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much. This is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Swarna.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
all. Thank you. Bye bye. Take care, all of you, and have a wonderful Saturday and Sunday. Okay. Bye bye. Thanks.